The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Hey, welcome to the Mind, Body, Spirit Show. Today, I'm going to teach you how to live to be 100 and look good. The telomere. You may be inclined to call this the telomere effect, looking at the word, at the book written here by Elizabeth Blackburn and Elisa Apel. They wrote this wonderful book. One looks more at the science of it, and the other one looks more at the psychology of it. And we'll discuss it in detail. And it's pronounced telomeres. Okay, I'm trying to teach myself actually. And what are? It's the path to living longer. What are the telomeres? They are the ends of our chromosomes. Our 46 chromosomes have an end, and there is an extension of them, and it has been discovered that the length of them determines how long you live. Yes, and they have found a one-cell organism that Dr. Blackburn discovered, and through a scope could see the length of them, and they could shorten them and lengthen them depending on the activities that are occurring around us. So we can influence them, okay? And that's wonderful news, okay? So we're going to teach you how to live longer and healthier. And you can look like you're 40 when you're 60, or you can look like you're 60 when you're 40. It's up to you. We'll teach you the path, what harms you, what helps you. And the telomeres do it. They are the controlling. And then they discovered telomerase, okay, an enzyme that replenishes the telomeres. That makes them longer again, because they thought only over time that they have a limit. It's called a Hayflick limit, and I'll tell you why it's called that. It gets shorter and shorter, and as you get older and older, there's a limit for them, and then, unfortunately, eventually, you know, we all may die, okay? And so they are, the telomeres protect our genetic heritage, what's in our DNA and in our genes, that already is written on a script, and the telomeres help protect that heritage. And some of us have longer ones, some of us have shorter ones. Cumulative evidence around the world has shown that you can lengthen them or keep them from shortening too much by how much you sleep, whether you exercise, what type of nutrition that you're eating. You're eating nothing but sugar, and you're going to have shorter telomeres. One thing that lengthens them too, fasting, yes. And what I teach people is time-regulated eating, 16-8. And not to fast days or months. I'm just talking about time-regulated, because in that 16-hour period where you are not eating, your body is repairing itself and it's lengthening the telomeres. Isn't that fascinating? I mean, it's fascinating to know that. And so what shortens your telomeres? Stress, negative thoughts, strained relationships, poor neighbors. Neighbors are making a lot of noise, or they get guns in the house and you don't have any, or you think they're infected with the virus and your kids are playing over there and you're worried about that. These are all things that can shorten your telomeres. Mothers who are stressed day after day, night after night, because of 3 or 4 children they're taking care of, and they don't know how to do it. You know, some others, it's like it's nothing. Other ones are extremely stressed out. But to improve your own health, you need to know your own body. You need to know and understand, and maybe you need to read, and maybe get on the internet, or maybe watch some of my YouTube shows about health. And there is a lady named Jean Clement. She's discussed in this book, whose lifespan was 122 years. And so what habits did she have? Well, when she was 85, okay, when most people have no telomeres left, they're extremely short and lucky to be alive, she took up fencing. She was learning something new. She had a purpose in life. She was thinking differently. What am I doing? Well, you know, I'm playing pickleball, tap dancing, walking in nature at age 39 for the 47th time. 39 for the 47th time. Okay, I played pickleball today. So, then she rode a bike into triple digits, into hundreds. I don't recommend that. That's risky behavior. But pickleball to some people would be risky behavior too, but not as risky. You got to do something, okay? But again, as we get a day older, we got to be careful climbing stairs, riding bikes, whatever we're doing, you know, can cause an injury, so be careful. Our DNA, which determines the characteristics in our body of every organ, of every cell has DNA in it, it does accumulate some damage as we get a day older. Okay, that's naturally, but we don't want to have excessive damage. That's why we do look a little older. So we have a health span, or we can have a disease span. When I look at this country or this county or this state, that a tremendous number of people have type 2 diabetes, which has attached to it 200 diseases. And they can be prevented by avoiding type 2 diabetes by eating right. You can get rid of type 2 diabetes in a few weeks. Look at my YouTube shows. Listen to my lecture at 6:30 on Mondays. A show I do here in the library. I have 15 years. It has the information how to get rid of diabetes. Don't accept it. Don't just take the pill or the shot because you have the disease. You may live a little longer because you took the pills and shots, but you will not live if you don't have the disease. The disease is not a friend. Remember, it has over 200 diseases attached to it, from dementia and heart disease. I could go on and on. So you can accumulate over time multiple morbidities, and your telomeres are shortening, and you're going to die at a younger age. Okay? So nurture, which is I'm talking about, affects you more. That's the things you're doing than nature. The more you get involved with the nature, nature makes things naturally. You can live longer. So your genes, okay, expressed by your DNA and RNA, your genes, we all have a certain number of genes in a body. We have a genetic script which has been written. Matter of fact, if you, now this is a nano size, if you were to stretch out your code from your genes, it would reach the moon. Yeah, and in nano size. So the telomeres are the ends of your DNA, okay? And they have no genetic code in them, although they're written in pairs. And each cell division in your body shortens the telomeres a little bit. But they have now found telomerase that you can lengthen them again. So it's not just the number of bad diseases that you got and have accumulated and poor lifestyle and stress that you've reached the limit of them. Elizabeth Blackburn and Alyssa Epel wrote this wonderful book. And our telomeres represent only 1/10,000th of our DNA. So it's in terms of material, it's very little. But they are the ones that carry out the command of the script that's been written, the DNA and the RNA. What's interesting, and it represents opportunity, is that your telomeres listen to you. They listen to you. So the noise around you, the way you're thinking, your thought process, your actions, whether you exercise, what you're eating, how stressed out you are, the telomeres are listening and help determine your lifespan. So we need to talk about stress a little bit, how to control it. We all need some stress, otherwise you wouldn't get out of bed. But some of us have excessive stress. So we need a healthy cell. Now, this is important. In 1961, just listen to this, this is fascinating. Leonard Hayflick ran some studies, and he's the one who discovered that our telomeres, our cells in our body divide a certain number of times, and the information is sent to your telomeres, and with each cell division they shorten. And there's a limit as to how many times they can shorten, and then you pass away, called the Hayflick limit, okay? So as we get a day older, remember in the end, most of us, all of us, frankly, pass on. So we could say we have a disease span or lifespan, senility, whatever you would like to call it. And in the world, there are 300,000 people over age 100. Mm-hmm. They think children born today that will expand tremendously, but actually they're showing now people on the average are living a shorter lifespan because they kind of reached up to age 60s. If you have diabetes, age 60 and 70, a lot of people have passed away. Mm-hmm. They've reached their Hayflick limit. And another way to look at telomeres is like your shoelace. Look at the hairs at the end that are usually wrapped with a piece of plastic or something. You take the piece of plastic off, you see these hairs coming out, and those are the telomeres. Look at it that way, okay? And your DNA strand is the shoelace, okay? And the end of these shoelaces, we call them agelets. It's enough, they're called agelets, okay? Something I didn't know. And but the surroundings of the rest of the shoelaces, like your chromosomes, they're wrapped in proteins so they don't come apart. At age 35 or so, we may have around 10,000 telomeres when we're a newborn baby. At age 35, maybe 7,500. At age 65, 4,800. So aging will decrease them, but if you accumulate a lot of diseases, you will decrease your telomeres a lot faster, and you will damage them, and they may never repair. And so what shortens your telomeres? Stress, okay? But you could do the opposite and exercise every day, or do some yoga, or play music, or take a walk in nature like I do, and I sing to the birds, and they tweet me back. When I take a walk in the mornings, the red-winged blackbird whistles back to me. Every day they wait for me to come, so that's very relaxing for me. So I suspect my telomeres are lengthening during this time. I do it about 45 minutes every day. Also in the morning, when I wake up around 5 o'clock, and the wife is still asleep, but at 6:30, light starts coming on, and the birds arrive, and the deer walks by, and the baby deer walks by. They're eating out of the bird feeders, and I've got Woody the woodchuck and raccoons living under my house for over 20 years. So I'm a friend of animals. I couldn't kill a mouse. Okay, I notice the animals treat each other quite well. They take turns eating the corn I put out there. It's quite interesting. I mean, occasionally a falcon will come in and grab a rabbit or something. That happens. But the majority of animals are very respectful to each other. They don't seem to go to war, but with an occasional body snatcher, who I don't love, but it's the way, that it is. So when you're on a certain path and you're not healthy anymore and your telomeres are shortening, I say switch lanes. Get the information from our YouTube shows. I've went on diabetes show on television, channel 39, 6:30 on diabetes, Mondays. Wednesdays, 6 o'clock, 1 hour, could be anything. This show would be an example. And animals have telomeres too. Some animals do. Birds, fish, mice also have telomeres, and they get stressed too. Birds can get stressed just by holding a bird, can get extremely stressed. I'm sure the deer, when they see me, I go out and take a walk. They know me now because I feed them. They'll wag their tail, they'll wag their ears, but they keep a certain distance. And I think they're stressed. They get closer than that, but about 100 feet away, they wag their tail and their ears, and so I must relax them. Sure makes me feel good. But you can change the way you look at things. Having been a neurosurgeon for 45 years, I'm a little bit past that now. Teaching more about wellness has given me a purpose in life. Yes, I write books, read books, TV shows, and I gave a lecture yesterday, doing TV today. I have a purpose in life. I'm looking forward to something, and that's very relaxing to me. Not that I don't get stressed enough, to get out of bed or even getting ready for a show. I got to read for these things. So stress is part of everybody's life. And so ask yourself, how do I look? Look in the mirror, look at yourself. take all your clothes off and see, are you way overweight? If you are, probably you're diabetic. What I always tell people, you are what your blood work is. So be sure to get your blood work. You may be thin, look great, and still have diabetes, which causes 200 diseases. Okay? So, and I say, ask yourself, how do I look? Younger than than the age that you are, about your age, older than your age. It'll give you some idea how your telomeres are doing. How do you rate your physical health? How do I feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? Actually, every organ in your body has stem cells, and they renew all the organs all the time, and that affects the length of the telomeres. So what you are consuming, what your 50 hormones in your body are doing, how you're thinking, is affecting the telomeres and the stem cells all over your body. So aging is a progressive functional impairment. Everything seems to slow down a little bit. The telomeres are getting shorter, but if you have good habits, you sleep good, you reduce your stress, you have a purpose in life, avoid smoking, alcohol, narcotics, your telomere length will stay longer and even can grow. Remember, telomerase, an enzyme that lengthens telomeres. So there are some people that live a long life and look good when they're 100 or over because they have been doing the things I spoke about. And your skin, for example, has a limited amount of telomerase, so an excess of sunshine will destroy some of that. It'll renew your skin, but after a while, you know, the skin it loses elasticity, and it doesn't look as good, and it gets thinner. The epidermis gets destroyed, but the dermis keeps on saving. And I notice, since I'm getting a day younger, no, I guess older, I notice that in some of my skin, but I keep my skin covered so that you need a certain amount of sunshine to activate vitamin D, but sunshine can indeed destroy your skin or harm it or cause black spots on it, all part of the aging process, because it destroys the collagen and the elastin in your skin. So genetic mutations are indeed occurring. If your hair turns gray at age in the late 40s, you might say, I got good health habits. How can that be? Am I losing my telomere length? I found out because it happened to me. And that can be a genetic gene you inherited, and your hair turns totally gray in the late 40s. Yes. I went to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee, and a young girl was standing behind me, and I still have hormones in my body, and the girl says, you want a senior coffee? You notice they don't ask for senior coffee anymore because it was upsetting. But here I am, 39 for the 47th time, and look at my hair, lots of hair. So that's a genetic thing. It's not most of the time related to a telomere length. Isn't that an interesting story? So your outward appearance most of the time reflects your health. And the good news is you can get a day older like I am and still feel good. And I've noticed I can go to Promenade Park and walk down the street, and people still come up to me, including young girls, and ask, where did I get that shirt? Or they get rid of their diabetes. They saw my TV show. So because you're getting a day older, don't give up. develop a purpose in life and dress in color, because people's neurotransmitters will reflect your attitude because they see in you. So aging does not matter that much. It's how much you smile, how healthy you are, how you dress. People will still relate to you. Just want to tell you that. And so I feel good almost every day because I have a purpose. And I exercise and take up tap dancing, and I do music. So what's inside of you matters more than, what's on your skin. Inflammatory factors build up after a while as we get a day older, and they shorten the telomeres a bit. A good blood test is an high HS, high sensitivity CRP. High sensitivity CRP will tell you how much inflammation is occurring in your body. It's the best test to see if you may have some heart disease. That is very important test. Mine is 0.1. I know somebody is 8 and they had recent heart surgery. That is much better than a cholesterol test. Come to find out, we need cholesterol. I just look at my TV show I did on statins, drugs they prescribe all the time, and make up your own mind. Don't stop it or start it. Read the information I provide for you, or some of the books I recommended, and make up your own mind. But that can result in a lot of illness using that drug. But don't stop it because I said so. Read it, talk to your doctor, show them the book, make up your own mind, okay? And so we need some short-term information if we have a little infection, for example. But when the whole body is inflamed and your HSCRP is elevated, could be a problem that's going on. I tell you, a good habit is to do some fasting. And I don't mean days or nights or months. What I'm talking about, time-regulated eating. It's what I do. Through circadian rhythm, that's through the sun and the moon and the darkness that your body picks up, the light reacts to, establishes and secretes hormones early in the morning, like steroids and hormones from the pituitary gland, and glucagon will have the liver release some sugar that your blood sugar will be very even, and you won't feel hungry because it's not going like this, which makes you hungry. Have a cup of coffee, that's fine. But if you can go 16 hours without eating, then the blood sugar will drop, the insulin level will drop, the fat cells open up, the fat cells go to the liver, make ketones. That's a very small fat molecule, and that's what you're living on. Meanwhile, your body is undergoing autophagia, repairing itself, and then and you eat. And if you eat, say, around lunchtime, eat again around 6, you've had, so fasting, that will repair telomeres very quickly. You will lengthen your telomeres. By doing that, you will look good, feel good, get rid of type 2 diabetes, and there's 200 illnesses it can cause. So time-regulated eating, a wonderful habit. I've had some people don't even need to change what they eat. Time-regulated eating, so your body undergoes autophagia. That time period, I think it's really great. So heart disease shortens telomeres, okay? The shorter telomeres, increased rates of heart disease. And also it can affect your ability to think. You can cognitive slowing, Alzheimer's disease. It's not as common as you would think. A lot of us are related to diabetes, that a lot of people are taking a statin drug, which turns off the manufacturing of cholesterol in your brain. Your brain, the glial cells make the only cholesterol the brain uses. If you're taking a statin drug, you're turning that off, and your memory will decline. You may have transient global amnesia. For a few hours, you may have total loss of memory. That's even occurred to astronauts. And a Dr. Graveline, who was an astronaut, had that happen to him. Every astronaut, they were giving them statin drugs. And we now realize, and it's in the literature, read it yourself. Read it yourself. It's in the books I recommend. So you can be healthier as you get a day older. So change how you think about it. You know, other people don't give it a thought. They just eat what they want to, don't exercise, and watch TV all day, and they're smoking and drinking, and alcohol destroys the brain. It will make the brain go away. I was a neurosurgeon. I've been inside that head lots of times with surgeries. I found people who were missing a third of their brain, but seemed to act reasonable, but they were staring straight ahead. Eventually, they died at a young age. Alcohol is very destructive to the brain, and you can follow Levi's image of old age scale. So, you know, we all lose some memory as we get a day older. Some years more than others, depending on what our habits were, how much alcohol we drank. But as I heard one gentleman who was having a moderate problem, now and then we have to have a laugh, and his excuse always says, "My memory is full." Now there's a good excuse for you. The reason I can't remember something is I'm older. I've got too much information up there. I thought that was a pretty good answer. But most of us who have a reasonably good habit, on the average, live 7 to 10 years longer, at least. And some of us can live, frankly, to 100, 120. Wouldn't you like to be 100 and look good? I'm showing you how to do it. I'm showing you how to do it. Keep your telomeres, build your telomeres by good health habits, nutrition, stress reduction, and I think a big thing, get a purpose in life, and that has at least done wonders for me. I'm a doctor. I'm helping people how to avoid and get rid of diseases. And I do it through books and television and radio and demonstrated by good health habits, playing sports and tap dancing. So I feel great every day, although I'm 39 for the 47th time. But anybody can do it. I'm not particularly intelligent or anything like that. I just do it. You got to do it. You must participate and know your body. You must know your body. Okay? And so work on improving your telomeres. So telomerase, remember I said telomerase can slow, prevent, and reverse the shortening of telomeres. Isn't that wonderful news? It can they can get longer, and you can live longer and feel great, be energetic. So telomerase, though, is no elixir. There is a limit, okay? But it can increase your lifespan, okay? So cell aging does occur, but it can affect where the cancer can arrive to. Too much telomerase can increase, it can affect cell division, and cancer gets involved. And And so it can be a Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde. It can make you healthier, but if it increases the number of cells, you're eating a lot of sugar. Cancer is a sugar feeder, okay? Otto Warburg discovered that in 1930s. Yes, cancer is a sugar feeder. It takes sugar to make ATP, the energy molecule. Come to find out now that the viruses that are invading us and the coronavirus 19 has no metabolic system. It enters an animal or human cell, steals genes, sugar and fatty acids, and starts multiplying. If we're healthy and don't have a lot of sugar in our cells, we need a certain amount, we're much less likely to get viral infections. 90% of the people die in New York City were diabetics. Yet Republicans, Democrats, Fauci, no one has mentioned that to anybody. But I mentioned that, and that's not just this coronavirus that does that. The influenza virus also is a sugar feeder. And a lot of deaths occur from the influenza virus every year in this country. Yeah, thousands of people die. So if you're not diabetic, you're less likely to become infected. I've noticed that in family and friends who I know seem to catch every virus going, and they're not that healthy. And others who never seem to catch one because they must have less sugar in their cells. That's absolute proof. Okay. So Dr. Blackburn, through research, found a living cell in a pond called tetrahymeno, and it was, in essence, is an immortal cell. It's just one cell. It seems to be able to repair itself and just keep on multiplying. You know, there's a picture of one, and then she discovered through magnification that she could see the telomere growing or shortening depending what they put inside that cell. Can you imagine that, the research, what's going on? And studies, they've studied now in detail. They can now, through X-rays, can see the telomeres, their length, and they have studied them in stressed mothers, for example, who have multiple children or children with problems, and they ran some experiments, and they could look, and they studied their saliva, and they could see the ones exposed to chronic stress, and they studied them for years versus the length of their telomeres, and they found that, and then they had a control group, that mothers that didn't have the stress, and they could see the telomere shortening much more than in the control group, which did not have the stress. So the science of this is growing. Now, and the point of it is that we can change our ways, and can change our ways, it can affect us at a cellular level, determine our Hayflick limit, our telomere length, and once the telomere length is nothing left, then chronic diseases start in our body. So that's something we want to avoid. But when we look around the community and patients that I treat, a lot of people around, especially in the state who have chronic disease. And you can just open your eyes and watch people walk by, and unfortunately, almost everyone who is overweight has diabetes. At least they need to prove it to me by a blood test, HSCRP, and the serum insulin. That's the critical test. If your blood sugar is not elevated, but the serum insulin is elevated, you get diabetes. That's well described. And you can watch some other shows, but Joseph Kraft did the research and published a book on that. You can get it at Amazon. You can read it in 2 nights. Get that book. Rarely do I meet a medical provider who has ever read that book. I blame the medical school, because they should be teaching the students about that. And it's doctors who need to educate the patient on every visit how to get healthy. And so it's a challenge. Stress. How do you deal with stress? But it can affect the 50 hormones in your body and upset you a great deal. But another way to look at stress is to look at it as a challenge. We all have some stress, otherwise I wouldn't get out of bed. But to look at it as a challenge, that you can get past this instead of just laying on the ground and screaming. So feeling threatened affects our telomeres. Yeah, it affects our telomeres. Remember, the shorter the telomeres, the more effects it has in your body. It actually affects your immunity, those cells that protect your body. You get an infection and your immune system trying to save your life. And they're called the CD8 T cells. They attack an injury or infection, or even your thought process can affect your immunity in your gut. For example, a lot of the serotonin, the feel-good hormones, are actually made in your gut. So how you think is important. And now, let's talk about stress a little more. And here's some tips. Don't get stressed about the little stuff. Well, some people get stressed about every little thing. They're always looking at the negative side of things. So what I'm saying to you, switch to another channel over the little stuff. And toxic stress, somebody's dying in the family, it's been a bad accident, things that are hard, that happen to every family. But you don't have to have the TV all the time on and react to every little world event that's in there. And some of these TV stations, now they have advertising every 2 minutes. I mean, it drives you bananas about what so-and-so is doing on a regular basis, and you react to it. I mean, some of that, we want you to be informed, but, you know, I know people don't watch any television. They take a walk and play pickleball, and they feel great every day. It's up to you, okay? Other things that stress us that directly affects our ego, our personal thoughts. But one way to handle it is to distance yourself from that. You know, just switch channels in your mind. Think about what you're going to do tomorrow, what you got coming up. There's a family meeting going to occur. My pickleball game tomorrow. A meeting I'm going to, start reading a book. Maybe that's why I read a lot of books. Maybe it gets me out of other thoughts. Could be, I don't know. I've been reading the book every 3 days, probably for over 20 years now. Maybe it was a stress reaction. I was a neurosurgeon, working day and night. Maybe, I don't know. But it sure brought me to a great world of a purpose in life. I now know the majority of illnesses that people have are self-induced, and I know how to prevent them and reverse them. It gives me a purpose in life. And I spoke to the business forum yesterday and laid it all out to them. And what I'm happy to say, they could have booed me. They stood up and applauded me. And Mark Deissner from Deissner Maternity stood up and he said, Rudy, I love you. You've been doing this for 20 years now. And then someone stood up and asked a question and said, what will it take, Rudy, to change the community so that the hospitals, the med school, and some universities now are joining together to promote disease so they have something to do. That's occurring. That's occurring. I did not have an answer for that, but I will keep on trying, okay? And so negative and positive thinking affect your telomeres tremendously. And but we can have some mindful training. I mean, yoga's a good thing. Some people, it's a good massage, for example. Taking a walk in nature like I do every morning, about 40 minutes, and relating to the animals. Yesterday morning, a deer and their youngsters was stopped, probably because I give them some food, waving their tails and waving their ears at me to say hello, but I wanted to get closer, but they went on, and then the birds were singing at me, and I tweeted them back. So develop a system that relaxes you, and it may be, you know, that you need to take 15 minutes in the morning and meditate, relate to your God or whatever. Maybe read the Bible. Maybe tap dance for 10 minutes like I do in the morning. And I have a Alexa machine now, and I say, Alexa, I was singing a song from Oklahoma, Good Morning, and what a wonderful day, oh, what a wonderful day. And Alexa sings it to me. These machines are, it is a good investment. It costs about $50, maybe less, Alexa machine. And you can tell it what to say, and it'll play music. I mean, it can give you the news too, and you can start getting upset. Or it can play a song for you when I look out the window to nature. It's playing, oh, what a wonderful day. And so all these things affect your mind in the length, you know, in the length of your telomeres. So I would recommend in the mornings to wake up joyfully if you can. Like I said, I will sit out there, and as the light breaks, there will be deer or animals feeding off the ground, even a woodchuck, a raccoon, and a deer, and birds will fly by, and maybe occasionally I see the last of the moon going overhead, so it is affecting the way I think. And then I myself do some reading, but you might want to just listen to the music from the Alexa machine. So you decide how your mind, so whether then have a cup of coffee, believe me, that affects the hormones in your body. And even if you're doing the 16-8 fasting, you know, which I do, I have a couple of cups of coffee, and I don't eat anything till around noon. and I find that my weight is 133 pounds, this 134, always about the same. I'm not trying to achieve a certain weight or anything, but I'm trying to demonstrate to you to make it easy, If you got type 2 diabetes, for example, I would suggest that you make a plan, and you can get rid of diabetes usually in about a month. Yeah, in about a month. Yeah, and remember, get a serum insulin test, high sensitive CRP, and I also suggest that you get a GFR, glomerular filtration rate. Kidney disease is in 5 stages, and the first 3 people have no symptoms, so they never get tested for it. When I spoke to that audience of 50 very successful businessmen yesterday, I asked if anybody here knew what their GFR was. Not one person knew what it was. I'm not being critical. I think what it is that their doctors are not ordering the test and not making them aware about what the GFR is. There are 5 stages to kidney disease. In the first 3, we have no symptoms. And the problem with that is that you can be stage 4 or 5, and now you need dialysis. And to turn the kidney disease around is very difficult because the changes that occur to the kidney usually affect the mitochondria and the DNA and the genes they're in, and it's very hard to change your DNA in your genes. So your GFR is now between 60 and 30, the stage 3 kidney disease. You might slow the decline down. You might stop it, but to reverse it is hard to do. You never reverse it a lot, maybe a little bit. I've done it with a number of patients, but the biggest thing I tell you about kidney disease is get tested so you know what it is. You may have no symptoms, but then you can act on what the problem is and lengthen your telomeres instead of shortening them, and you will die ahead of your time. The trouble is when you have these illnesses caused by when you reach your Hayflick limit and now you're into disease, your telomeres are not there anymore, and you're now in the disease phase that you will not live as long, okay? Probably die in your 50s, 60s, 70s, but the last 10 to 20 years, you will suffer. Significant people will have serious problems. I know of families, although I've told them, well, what happened is, say, I respect diabetes. Well, you're taking metformin or insulin, and they may cause you to live a little bit longer, but the last 10, 15 years, there will be effects, heart attacks, strokes, amputations, dislocations. I've gone to a certain church where the family knows me, and I've attended 3 of their funerals. All 3 people had their legs amputated, all from a preventable complication, vascular disease from diabetes. Diabetes causes 200 diseases from dementia to heart attacks to strokes to amputations, dislocations, kidney disease, skin disease. I can go on. Most cancers are related to diabetes. Yes, breast cancer is 50 to 80% of breast cancer is related to diabetes, because remember what I said? Cancer is a sugar feeder. Cancer loves sugar. And it's a little bit shameful that organizations that we have in town who took all the money they collect for breast cancer, and they sent it all to Indianapolis, millions of dollars for research. Well, I know from studying, having written a book called Breast Cancer Prevention is the Cure. Yes, you could prevent it. You get rid of type 2 diabetes, then you don't have sugar in your cells, and cancer can't feed off of that. Breast cancer has 33 genes associated to it. So and each gene would take one drug. Some affect 2 genes, occasional drug, but not breast cancer. Somewhere one drug will do it. Those are rare. Breast cancer is not one of them. They've now discovered 33 genes affect breast cancer. So what are you going to take? Your breast cancer, eventually they'll tell you got to take 33 drugs. Just the complications from those drugs probably will affect you tremendously. That's the reason that I say prevent the disease, prevent diabetes, you prevent 200 diseases. So what today's talk here, that if you want to read more about it, you can read this book that Telomere, not Telomere, Telomere Effect by Elizabeth Blackburn and Alyssa Epel. Wonderful books to read, tremendous research, and work on lengthening your telomeres, which what I'm saying is largely determined by what you do. If you don't participate, you may not live as long. In the last 10, 15 years, you may actually suffer from a chronic disease and have amputations, sudden heart attacks, strokes, memory loss, renal disease, all can be avoided. So I want you to develop and be conscious of the telomeres, which you can even affect by what you're eating when you're pregnant. Yes, your DNA script of the infant in your uterus will be affected by what you are doing. Are you smoking? Are you drinking? Are you eating the right food? Are you playing music to your child? Because the child can hear. At about 3 months of development, the ear is the first organ that develops. The Mozart effect. Maybe that's why Mozart was so great, because they were singing and playing music while the child was developing in the uterus. Okay. I hope you learned something today. You can watch other YouTube shows, hundreds of them. Rudy Cashman YouTube, Rudy Cashman Diabetes Support, FW.com will get you more information. Hope you watch the other shows. I'm doing this because I care about you and I love you. And namaste. See you on the pickleball court.